Hey team, how we going? Feels like it's been forever. Good to have you here on a Sunday. It's been a while since we've done a Sunday stream, but I couldn't see another time I was going to be able to fit this in while having it somewhat prepared, while still answering bat phone calls, as well as family asking when am I going to have any shots. Good to have you here today. I appreciate your time. We're going to speak about some subjects to give clarity to conversation, to what's happening in the world. How did it get to this? To have a solution, or to have an argument, you need to have a solution, and I've got one. Colonel Boogie, 14. G'day, mate. How you going? His mate looks like a kangaroo. Lauren, we'll leave you off for a while today so that we have the least amount of, not distraction, but banter between ourselves. And we'll also have to be more of an information delivery for at least the first 10 to 15 minutes at least, team. Okay, so hold your questions for that. Sabrina, that's a lovely name. She says g'day to Lauren, but not so much to Kaz. That's okay. I smell like Cotton Eye Joe at the moment. Keegan Ronan. G'day, everyone. G'day, you. Magnifico. G'day, mate. Who was here first? Make sure you subscribe, team, because if you subscribe, that means you can comment. Alex Lanning. Kaz, I'm putting the blame on paramilitary leadership. Well, at this stage, the blame is starting to actually, pretty much stick with the decisions that are made in the last couple of months. And maybe some disingenuous information coming out of the intelligence communities. Sirat is saying, hi Kaz, do reserve infantry get the Skippy badge? No, they don't, mate. Mate, it must be earned by the 12 to 13 weeks. 12 to 13 weeks at the School of Infantry itself, mate. I'm doing okay, mate. Getting a bit of pressure on family to have the jab. Yeah. How about yourself there, Daz? Damien Rowe, doing my PFA in 9 days. You're going to smash that, I hope, mate. Now, by rights, that should be the minimum qualification to have a lay down with another lady. Chanel Christie, g'day, Kaz, Lauren, and team. It's always good to have another channel on the on the channel. Tactic Nick, g'day, mate. Connor Brown Connor. Connor of colour. Hi, Damien. I hope she doesn't mean 666. We've got the parrot from the north. Kane Higgins, Akaz Lauren, and Mr. P, and Mr. Buckarunian team. Nothing like a bit of salmonella with chicken, boy. El Grasso, don't leave your missus free with him. No, I don't believe so, Mr. El Grasso. I don't. Nicole King. G'day, Daz. Says Nicole, the King of Queens. Bailey's hat, wherever he throws it, that becomes his home. It landed on Elton John's bed. He hasn't come out since. Matty 123 can count a little bit further than the average Afghan troop. Sabrina, love the name Chicken Boy. Or Boy Chicken. Stevie Webb, Ed B, USA, yo. The Rural Hunter. What are you hunting today, Rural? It's okay, Chicken Boy. My name, my mate looks like, the kangaroo saying g'day to the Rural Hunter. That's a surprise. And Colonel Boogie.
Out here for you.
Here we go. Let's get ready to rock, team.
Like to be me out here for you.
We choose truth over facts.
Never go full retard.
Come on, man.
Hey guys and gals, how we going? It's Kaz from In the Trenches with Kaz. I'm here, Ed's here, okay? Has been to Afghanistan, done his job over there. So have many of his friends, my friends. We've lost friends and colleagues as well. Guys and gals, 20 years, it's come to this. What did we know? What didn't we know? What could have been done better? How are you supposed to think about this? Is there someone to blame? At the moment, we can blame a few groups. And one is the truth, which is the biggest casualty of WAR, a word we can't say unless we actually are Taliban, and then the blue ticks on Twitter will allow us to say it. but it'd be that man up the top right. That's General Milley. He knows what's going on, and he's going to have for the rest of his life to answer the questions and saying things like, are you looking at me? What for? Because that's where it ends. He is the top of the military branch other than the Minister of Defence for USA for their forces. And there's a whole bunch of questions to ask. Now, was it always going to be this way? Was it a success? Yes, it was a success for what it achieved. Okay. Kept the wolf overseas, away from domestic, sheep, so to speak. Okay, there's one thing we need to understand about Afghanistan. It used to be a beautiful country. It used to be a country. By all measurements, I wouldn't say that Afghanistan is a country. I would say that it is a collection of tribes that date back thousands of years, that we've stamped a franchise over the top of it that didn't necessarily fit, called it Afghanistan, okay, and expected it to live by the rules of a modern society of the values of which it's rejected. So it was never about nation building. It was never stated that it would be about nation building. It wasn't about giving back the rights to people like the 60s and the 70s. Thank you, lovely Lauren, for giving me an absolutely amazing video, which we won't be putting up to drag out the bandwidth of this internet and put us in trouble of getting a bit of a lag. But it shows that you could not have seen the difference between a lot of the people in 1960 and 1970 Afghanistan living their life and those of Sydney. It looked very similar. Short skirts, happy faces, fathers equally holding their sons and daughters' hands in complete symmetry. It was beautiful. It made me happy, and it was the first thing I saw today. How did it get to this? 2 generations of no schooling, of only learning religious education, the restriction of everything. Okay, allowed people to go back and be happy with less. And when you're happy with less, it's hard to bribe them. Okay, it's hard to give things in order for people to change. We just got a ding. Okay, Ed B is just clarifying. There was no Afghan. He trained people for Afghan. He recruited people for Afghan. All his trips were in the cradle of civilization, being Iraq. Okay, so basically we've got Afghanistan, which in itself is a hot mess. Right? The winning side, the more aggressive side, even though it was the smaller numbers, was the Taliban, and they used force to get that. Okay? Never think that the ANA did not still fight for their country, because they lost more than 50,000 men of their own. But eventually they knew that the day would be over where Big Brother was going to be there to assist. And as that came closer and closer, okay, it became time to lay down your weapons and hopefully, okay, bygones be bygones, and we get on with life. Okay, and when they did an actual walk around in Afghanistan and asked them the very reason why the US were there with coalition forces about September, they'd never heard of it. They didn't even know why people were there. All it looked like was the infidel was in the country trying to bend the will of modern Western society, including all of the things that came with gender studies and the woke left, upon a nation that absolutely rejected it. So it's led us to here. We've got a series of questions. We've got a whole bunch of statements. And hopefully this is a little bit of an information session for you on how would Kaz have done it better. So I'll do a quick summary. We'll ask the questions and then we'll go back and we'll actually chop into those. But before we do so, a bit of information about Bagram Airfield, all right, and some of the questions that need to be asked. Okay, here's a couple here, and I shouldn't need my glasses for this. Bagram Airfield, or Bagram Air Base, is a military base. It has been there basically since previous occupations by other countries. Now, there's some things you need to know about it. It used to only be 3,003 metres long, which would be fantastic for Carl P. But then it had to be extended for Antonovs, for Globemasters, for Galaxies, all the planes that Kaz has been in with his brothers, so that it didn't overshoot the runway. And the runway then got extended to 3,602 metres. One of the things that's interesting about this is because the Bagram Airfield is 40 kilometres to the south, international civilian airfield is 40 kilometres to the south. Okay, but completely contained in its own little epoch, which only has 2 roads in, which is fantastic, unless you're trying to get out of there. But if you're trying to get into there, it means we can absolutely identify, the routes of infill, and we can do things to harass, prevent, block that from occurring. Very predictable movement routes. Right, so the elevation is 1,492 metres. You can see behind us, it's on basically a plateau. I think that's a galaxy down the bottom right. And from there, it can get down to 21 degrees minus. And I'm talking about Celsius here, which means in the winter months, that can get goddamn icy. So I don't think there's much travel that happens there in the winter months. Has Kaz been to Afghanistan? No, I haven't. My bum blew out in 2003, on a trip in Asia, on an operational trip. And from there, they said I had to be near a Class A medical facility, but they still allowed me to go to the Sinai Peninsula on the west of the Middle East so that I could go and become an Egyptian citizen for the Camp David Accords at the Al Ghura camp in the Sinai Peninsula. You're hanging with me? Righto. So the 1st of July, 2021, that was when we quit the actual Bagram airfield. And that's going to lead into questions in a minute. Why? Why did we stay, we'll call it for now, the Kabul Civilian International Airport impossible to secure? Because of the urban fringe was all around it. Right, we'll get into that. So the 15th of August, it was abandoned. Okay, 2IC, I'm going to have to go to my glasses. Spectacles, said a more intelligent guy than myself. Okay, in October 2009, one of the problems with the upgrading of the Bagram airfield, 40 kilometres to the south, was it was called the Boomtown because when they started working on the actual airfield and spent $200 million on it, which was absolutely nothing compared to the $2 trillion that was spent, with more than $600 billion, I'll say it again, $600 billion going missing. An expansion occurred. When the expansion went down, the official US policy was this is not to be an occupation force. Do not harden the country to the position we cannot pull out. But they kept spending and spending and spending, including over 150 solar lights put in a place where the sun hardly shines to ward off those that were potentially carrying out sexual assaults on other female soldiers on the base, which you were allowed to drink at, which is always a mistake. Right, actions on RV points. Okay, well, that's out the way. Right, some of the questions that I've come up with, right, because we're starting to see now, there is fingers that can be pointed. There was changes to the plan. There was information left out. There's equipment left behind. Nothing has gone the way it was meant to. But it's impossible that people didn't know this was occurring. Impossible. So how did it happen? And who's got it now? And what does it mean for you? Okay, some of the questions. Who was in charge? Who was in charge on the ground? Who was the head military person whose only job was to have moral courage and speak up aggressively to the Minister of Defence and say, this is the way it is on the ground. Okay, this is what's happening. This is what you must do, or it's going to come back onto you. Imagine there is 10 people, professionals, experts, subject matter experts around whoever the president is of the United States. Okay, and again, this is also happening for UK, it's happening for Denmark, it's happening for Australia, etc. And he will basically go around and say what's occurring here, what's occurring there, what's occurring there. Everyone gets a chance to speak. And then they give their expert advice based on sound intelligence, based on no emotion. Emotion must be left out. That is for civilians. Okay, so who was in charge? Well, it was General Milley. Okay, what was the fixed exact date for the last troops to be out, which the ambassador to Afghanistan should have been holding the US flag in the last chopper to say, bam, we are officially out. No one has been left behind unless they chose to be. So what was that fixed date? Reverse engineered. Who chose Hazmid Karzai International, Kabul International, over a defendable Bagram airfield, and why? Explain that to me. Explain that. What date did the rules of engagement change from the defence to the withdrawal, the third phase of WAR, to the fourth phase of WAR? Because the rules of engagement change from the defence to the withdrawal. The withdrawal means now we are not able to protect civilians. We're not able to protect those that are not in our charge to protect. We are not allowed to assist. We are not allowed to prevent. We're only got to stick to the charter that we have been given. So, what date did the rules of engagement change? Because that would make a really big decision point, a friction point, a decisive event when Aviation Assets and Intelligence Committee saw forced generation of Taliban moving on Kabul, moving on Kandahar, but doing nothing to either prevent them moving up the roadways before they got to Kabul to make more time. Standing patrol, 300. Thermopylae, there can be only one. No, that's Highlander. Yeah, so what date did the rules of engagement change? Okay, the last one, one of the last ones, why were US-based owned companies like Twitter allowed to allow terrorist organisations on their social media platform while not allowing the ex-president to be on there? So you're allowed to assist, aid and abet. We know what that word is called. TREASON, the enemy, a terrorist group that was operating against your own country, and you allowed them access. That's not freedom of speech. That's a crime. Punishable by. Okay. Ultimately, that comes down to a quick statement. That is follow the money. Follow the money, the 600 billion that is missing, and you'll have your answers. Guaranteed. Ask yourself, why wasn't the Russian embassy, why wasn't that, abandoned? It was fine. It was actually guarded. Why is there already conversations now happening, from a recognised terrorist formation with legitimate countries on how we go forward? It's because we've botched things so badly. The only way to get people out is to now negotiate with former, potentially currently, enemies, who are at the moment, to some extent, behaving themselves. And what does it mean for the head of the Taliban, who I believe is in the most danger of all? And I'll explain why in a moment. Now, what things should have sounded like? What have we got here, Kaz? What have we got? We had something written here. Where did that go to? I had a mission statement here. Where'd that go? Someone's crept in and taken it. All right. Okay, how are we going? We're keeping up, team. Okay, we can see at the top, Taliban, General Milley saying, it's not my fault. The guy down here at Bagram Airfield, again, across from him, Bagram Airfield, downstairs, Bagram Airfield, equipment left behind. Weapons, there should be no weapons left behind unless they were from the ANA. Okay, what was the action on when we started to hear the word on the ground was that they don't intend on fighting? There's no gunshots happening. There's no resistance. You know, people are asking, what's this on top of my M4? Oh, that's a night aiming device, mate. Okay, why do you still have that if you don't intend on fighting? Let's take it with us. Every soldier that went to that country took their own weapon with them, and they brought that weapon back. So what was left for them, I don't know. But every single thing, from a crate to a vehicle, to a weapon, to a night vision sight, everything shy of a battery, even a fridge, has a serial number on it. And it's accounted for every single month. Weapons, nearly every day. Security checks. You cannot have a weapon unaccompanied unless it is in a locked environment at any stage. And now we've got people walking around that could have been, before rules of engagement, see them, take him out, no warning, boom. Now, walking around, lasering each other, out of control. So, if I was to give this same scenario to children, okay, to teenagers, as a computer game, they would have worked this out a hell of a lot better than what General Milley did. So the conclusion is I'm starting to think there is a deliberate reason that this all went down, transpired, and we don't know what it is. Might one day. Or maybe it's going to be another question that will never be answered. Gallipoli versus Kabul. Now, Gallipoli, when Australia left Gallipoli, okay, and that was considered an 8-month, not necessarily a mistake at the Dardanelles, but an unsuccessful attempt to be able to take that peninsula and control the waterways. When we realised that was unattainable, it was time to get out of there. Okay, the diggers used deception. They used the water cans dropping down to keep the weapons, the 303, firing occasionally at Johnny Turk. So he thought we were still inside the trenches. At night time, night withdrawal, no one killed, successfully. Poof. The next morning, off the beach, in the boats, see you later, outside weapons range, let's go somewhere else, lick our wounds and get on with it. Done perfectly. Master move. A lesson. What happened here is the exact opposite. Right. This is some of the things that you would learn in the military from section commander normally onward. There's a thing called physical depth. Okay, so what would have happened was where Kabul is, where Afghanistan, where Kandahar is, where the operating bases were, that what would happen is you would have patrols out. That creates physical depth. How far out do you physically have your radius out that prevents, okay, freedom of movement from opposition forces that also brings in information? How far do we physically deter the threat force from being? And then we have depth by fire, which goes a lot further than that. How far do our indirect weapons reach? Well, that's entire Afghanistan, because we've also got air domination. Nation. And then we've got indirect fires. Okay, and then we've got, whether that be from artillery, whether that be from missile weapon systems, whether that be from independent agencies. And that overlaps, right? Creates bands of fire zones, so to speak. But you still normally need someone on the ground to be able to say, okay, JFT, someone that can call in the fire, etc. But that can also be from aviation as well, can do that. Identifying targets, battlefield effects, etc. So death by fire. A cordon and collapse. The first thing that should have occurred was a date is put in stone. And that would have sounded something like all US forces Afghanistan mission. All US forces Afghanistan are to be physically withdrawn no later than 0001 hours, 11 September 2021, in order to facilitate successful handover takeover with Afghan government forces and conclude whether it was enduring freedom, whether it was the mission it is. And that'd be stated twice. So as a mission, it doesn't change. That cannot change. It can have actions on. Okay, it can have different plans that happen within contingency plans, but there is a definitive date that does not change. And then from there, we reverse engineer that, unpack it, okay, so that we can have the dates put in, the information, we populate it. Okay, now, one of the things we should be doing, okay, the very first thing is a coordinate collapse. You keep the strength, the physical depth out there. You keep the rules of engagement that allow prosecution of targets right up to the last moment within the mission and overlapping into the withdrawal phase, which is the fourth phase of WAR. Civilians must be the first to go. Priority must always be US citizens, British citizens, Dutch citizens, Australian citizens, Canadian citizens. They must be first. And then it would go Afghanistan nationals. And then it would be government employees. And then it starts to get into military with the AGI, special forces, sources, going out first. No. Right. So the reason we do that is because the most confusion comes from the most emotional, and that's always going to be the civilians on the ground. So the very last people out are always going to be Arms Corps soldiers with the ambassador as a physical, military / political symbol that we have left, and we are the last people to leave. And we did so, without a tail between our legs, but in a way that we could hold our head up. Instead, they actually crept out of Bagram Airfield back over to an undefendable location. So the coordinate collapse needs to be set. For that to occur, then the memo needs to go out. We need a complete list of every single person inside Afghanistan who has legitimacy to get out of that country. And this has to be wrapped up with maybe 10 days out before the military start to leave, destroying things as they go. Scorched earth. Something that can't be used against them later. So you would get 1 or 2 dates to say with your family, don't care about your feelings. Pick up your children. You're to be at this rendezvous point, this assembly area, where a military person will take you and then take you to the next spot inside a secure location. Bagram Airfield can hold well over 10,000 people. And you will be shuttled out on this date. Don't come beforehand. Be at the RV before this time. You are not to tell anyone about this, and your life does depend on it. So that occurs. And then the dribble of people going out. No Planet Z, spectacles of chaos of people running and going crazy across airfields. Similar to that. That's what we got instead. Every single one of them has a story, a reason for them why they want to be on that plane, but not one of them has paperwork. But there's probably someone up there, maybe in that red car, who actually has his passport and is shitting himself. How do I go from here to meet the Marine to say, I've got my papers on me now? Because it was done poorly. Every single one of them has their own story. Are you hanging with me, team? So the coordinate collapse is continuing. Right, so you'll get your dates and you might have 2 dates. If one does not match, then the second date, but that's your last chance, and you've waived your right for any extraction if you do not meet the dates that you met. There is no excuse at all. And again, this now needs to be put into some sort of COVID, OHS as well. Where everyone will be considered from here in, you are in quarantine. The conditions aren't going to be necessarily the best. You're going to be eating likely the same food that's coming out of a white cardboard box as what the soldiers are, but you'll be alive. And you won't need to panic. And you can lie to your children and make it a game and get out and be happy and live your life again and be glad that you weren't left behind. To the chaos. So the collapse happens in an orderly fashion. Before you know it, there's 10 days to go, and the only people on the ground now are military. From there, what happens is forfeiture of equipment. What can we not take? Centralise it. B-52. Be prepared to drop all payload, destroy it. Or whether it be white phos inside those vehicles, or let them have the vehicles. They're just a vehicle. We can't afford the extra baggage to take them home. Let them have a vehicle, big deal. But there should be no projectile weapon systems at all. Right, equipment. Intel Committee, accurate information. I believe it's been bullshitting from the very start. The capability from the ANA. There has been absolute dereliction of duty. Everyone from General Milley down in the Intel Committee, Intelligence Corps, should be disgusted. Or maybe they're saying, we told. And we were told, shut up, stay inside your lane. And that may have happened too. They might have been completely overruled because all the plans for the withdrawal were pretty close to perfect up until the current chief took over and decided that he wanted to stay longer than the 1st of May or 10th of May, whatever that date was, because he wanted to make a stunt, wanted to make it look more like September 11. Okay, so the Intel Committee, I don't know what happened there, but there's going to be some serious questions that need to be asked, and that should be asked by all the Gold Star mothers in the USA. Actions on. What are your actions on now? We are very, very lucky at the moment that the Taliban leadership is trying to be considered to be a, what would you call it? A sovereign country's government system. Because that means they're trying to put their people in the best behaviour. That's going to backfire. Because you've got people that are under 20 years old that have been in this conflict for more than 20 years that are now never been in a city, that are suddenly in a city and being told, okay, you've never had a girl in your life, you can't just take one. Okay, there's been people that have been fighting you here, you can't take it out on them, you've got to forgive them. You've got a weapon, those people have got all the things you've never had and you can't take it, even though you got me here doing all of that. He's acting more like a country, an Afghanistan leader, than what he is potentially a Taliban leader, and that could come back to hurt him. One of the moderate leaders for the USA that was actually imprisoned for 10 years went back to Afghanistan today. He is a moderate, he's not an extremist, and I believe they're going to keep some of the, or go back to a less aggressive version of what happened in when the Taliban came back in and took power. So hopefully we're going to see schooling for women, for children, in reading, arithmetic, etc., rather than just religious teachings, go ahead. And hopefully the reprisal attacks, okay, there's nothing you can do to stop that. That's going to happen, but it'll go both ways. Because there's going to be people that also take it out on Taliban that go, I remember you when you came into my village. They hold grudges and they can hold them forever. Okay, withdrawal conduct, civilian versus military. So that's all out the way. So basically, what Kaz would have done was made a firm date. What I would have done is put the memo out. Okay. And that would have been, this is the date, it's not shifting. Reverse engineered. I would have had rules of engagement. I would have said up until the last period of time how to expect the ANA to fight if we don't assist them up to the point of leaving. Okay, we could have had that conversation. All of the vehicles, all of the weapons, all of the Taliban moving towards Kabul, moving towards Kandahar, they had to go on only a couple of select routes. From there, they could have been B-52'd, they could have been interdicted. If you make some damage at the front of a column of vehicles, that becomes very restricted terrain. Other vehicles can't come through, permanently delayed. It would not have been hard, but I don't know where the rules of engagement slipped up as well. So at the moment, it's extremely sticky, dicey on the ground. So now if you see something happening to a civilian in Afghanistan right now, guess what you can't do? You can't help them. You can't help them. Now, we're doing business with a terrorist organisation that's fighting for legitimacy and siding with the Red Corn Chip and Russia. Yeah, for rare earth minerals, we'll see what happens. It's the big picture that needs to be watched closely, Magnifico. Yep, Lauren, they got Russian. Yeah, but that's not necessarily going to go that way. That's part of the Belt and Road Initiative and stuff like that, rare minerals being a business transaction. Do people really want to start working the fields when they've carried a Kalashnikov for the last 20 years and felt like a god taking what they wanted? Probably not. If you went into Detroit, would they suddenly go, yeah, I'll work at Starbucks? No. The interpretation of Sharia law is going to be a big one. Lauren, about a month ago, the big red courtship hosted Taliban leaders as legitimate foreign leaders. The photos of them shaking hands made me sick. The southern border to USA is basically a swinging door at the moment. You know, we could see either the golden days for Afghanistan may in fact come. They may. But where is $600 billion missing? Where is it? Yep, that's a weird one. Remember, at the end of the day, g'day, Mr. Wick, how you going? Great to have you here with us on Patreon too, mate. Guys, how long have we been talking for? 37 minutes of Kaz just yapping at his trap off. So you've got some sort of understanding that this should have been, could have been done better. It took absolute skill for it to be coming off this badly. There should absolutely be sackings. The first thing should be is Mr. Biden sacking that whole attaché of ministers, okay, and generals, and potentially even looking for criminal. If a soldier can go to a military jail for insubordination, for speaking to the very man who let them down and potentially got them and others, okay, finished, that doesn't make sense. He needs to be held accountable. Dan has crabs. How are you going, mate? We're good, buddy. Vegemite Valley, if you haven't seen this one from the start, I'd recommend you go and look at it later so you understand how to at least combat some questions, answers of others that might be very confused on this and what does it mean to them. Mr. Magnifico, I believe it would have been slick. Absolutely slick. Because we could have wargamed this together and sat down and worked out a perfect plan. And the most important one is, why did they choose Kabul Airport instead of a completely defendable military air base known as Bagram, instead of leaving it in the dead of night? It doesn't make sense. It should have been at 5:30 in the morning that a chopper was just seen, just one chopper in the air with an American flag flying, just as a symbol of closure for that mission. Not a shot fired. That would have been a way to do it. Was the trip a success? Absolutely. Depends who you ask. They achieved their mission. Just no one understands why they stayed so long. It wasn't to nation build. It wasn't to bring back a fair go for ladies in the classroom. It wasn't to reinterpret Sharia law. It was to go after a bad guy and keep the wolf in foreign soil. They did that. But they just stayed a long time and it became a money funneling program which has created millions of millionaires and you don't know their names. Or maybe you do. Yeah, I don't to say no, nothing's going to. Yeah, well, Magnifico, things are going to happen, but you just haven't actions on for it. Everything we do, you know, when you watch 300 with the Spartans, okay, we still do that now. We have standing patrols to create that physical depth where we push soldiers out and they will take up a position, become physical depth, to become an objective to a threat force, so they scale in on that while the other forces either collapse, okay, or use death by fire, okay, to be able to prosecute targets beyond that delaying force. But that delaying force, even now, can be told you are going to stay there until you're done. There is no coming back. That is your job. Thank you for your service, sir. Private. Corporal. Well done. We'll remember your name. Say my name, say my name. TLC. Word of Doro, Kaz, you seen the Taliban react to the World War II scene from the Marines? No, I haven't actually. If they didn't stay so long, many more soldiers would still be alive. Look, they could war game this forever, you know, but we'll never understand who the main players were or what happened, transpired, or why it occurred that way. But it did go through 5 presidents. Yep. And to the 41 Aussies that lost their lives, I knew a lot of them. You know, God bless your soul, and I don't think you wasted your time because planes are full, okay, full of people that now live in Australia, okay, happy. Yeah, you got the bad guys, and what the bad guys would do in the future didn't happen. Butterfly effect. This whole video, not this one, but the situations occurred, is overlapping butterfly effects of poor decisions. Dane has crabs. I'm sorry, Dane. You can either shave off the pubes or set fire to them. That'll get rid of the crabs. I'm quite fond of seafood myself. On the news, mate, they're saying Afghans done the brunt of the fighting for the past year. For the past year, that's true. Yes, that is true. Yep. Mercenaries didn't do any. Yeah, a contractor is not there to go out and doesn't have any ability to go out and seek out and close with the bad guy. That's not their job. Their job is to protect. Lest we forget. Yes, sir. Yeah, lest we forget. Folks, this was about 9/11. It wasn't in vain. That's right. Okay, there's a lot of people here that may not have even been alive in 2001 when it occurred. I remember where I was. I remember who I was dating too. I remember coming out at a house full of 2nd Battalion soldiers and then being called to the base, the gates closed, and then we weren't sure what was happening next. And then the operational trip started pumping out. I've lost people I trained. I've lost people I drank beers with. Right? But on Facebook at the moment, there's a whole bunch of Afghans, okay, that have made it here safely that were interpreters in 2012 with Australian forces, and they were thanking Australian soldiers for what they did to free them and their nation, okay, and to put a spotlight on the Taliban Sharia law actions to say this is not on. And hopefully what we're seeing is a new chapter. Right. So do we have any questions on this team? Bagram Airfield, why was it abandoned? Who would choose to go to a civilian-surrounded international airport instead, which was impossible to secure? Makes no sense to me, but someone knows. Nicole King. I remember my mum calling me in Townsville and turned the news on while I was getting ready to go to work. Yep. Husband thought you were watching a movie. A lot of people thought that, Nicole. The guy I lived with, okay, Matt, the rising star of Lul, you know, he thought he was watching a movie, and then he turned the channel over and went, it's on both channels. It's not a Pepsi Lightfoot. Take that back, sir. That's Coca-Cola in the bottle. Everywhere you go overseas, I remember when I was in Rwanda, you'd be patrolling the streets, and then you'd have a little kid come up to you, and they didn't know how to say Coke properly. They go, you want a cock? You want a cock? And I'm like, no, but I'll take a Coke. And they'd give you these, but once they sold it to you, overpriced, that's for sure. That was an American dollar back in 1995. Okay? Thieving little bastards. And you could see when you took the lid off that didn't look like this. It was all chipped from the mouths of those with broken teeth that drank the Coke before you. And they'd just follow you like a caddy until you finished it, and then they'd want the bottle back so they could recycle it. Nothing brushes teeth like a Coca-Cola. Yeah. So that's what chaos looks like too. Looks like a cabin boy's butt. Smokey B, all right, I'm off now, team. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your days. Thanks, Smokey B. Cheers, mate. We've had a whole lot of good news coming in from people getting their results as well. We've got Michelle the Cobra from Western Australia who hasn't spoken to for forever. And she's just been given a date for 12th September. So she's going in. Fantastic. Perfect time to go in while still getting Christmas. And she's about to also get married too. Sounds like they met a lot of sailors, Johnny Wick says. Brady, our brave men did not waste their lives. No, they didn't. They did everything asked them and much more. They deserve our eternal gratitude, just like the rest of the Anzacs, lest we forget. Absolutely. Brady, well said. Well said. We just go where we're sent. And we've got to understand that when we put our signature down, we don't get to choose where, when, or why. We just go there when the scream in the night happens. I don't get to be able to say whether it's a beautiful or an ugly woman screaming as my neighbour, which one I go and help if I think something bad's happening to them. I've got to go to whoever calls, because that's what you do as a neighbour. Daz, awesome news. It is awesome news. I love it when people get their information, that they've got the date that's ready to go, because then you know their legacy begins. You know their life is about to completely change. We've just had so many people jumping onto the bat phone. And for those new people to the bat phone, I tell you, guys and gals, once you get on there, send me that message to the bat phone so that we can have that meeting and talk to you and get you through the hurdles one-on-one. Sabrina Greco, I got class 4D, so hopefully my re-app works in 12 months. I hope so too, Sabrina. And sometimes some time out of the saddle, okay, makes us look at things with a better perspective as well. The Phoenix Knights here. The thing, they got the alleged bad guys for 9/11, but they totally stuffed up in stabilising the country. An earlier dialogue should have been with the Taliban instead of popping up the corrupt. Their job wasn't necessarily to stabilise the country. Their job was to keep the fight there. Yep, that's what it was to do. Yeah. And whoever would have thought, who honestly ever would have thought that the ANA would have let their put their hands down so quickly. But if the coalition forces had have done an interdiction mission on the advancing Taliban, all of the goodness that's happening right now would not be able to occur at all. This is just horrible that we have American social media companies that half of you guys are on, aiding and abetting the enemy against their own countrymen and being allowed to do it while saying stop and saying to their own people you can't do it. This channel right now is shadow banned, which means it can't be seen by those who are not already subscribers. Why do you think it just goes, ramps up? Okay, and then the views just stop like they've hit a wall. Why do you think I never do a thank you 10,000K subscribers? Because none of our views get 10,000 views. So it's like I don't have 10,000 subscribers. The world is watching you, team. That's why I also say be very careful about going to any rallies. Go to any of these things that can make your future harder because your face is recognisable as being a detractor of the narrative. Be careful. Dane, I sent you a message, Kaz, just asking to reaffirm my facts. I'll have a look at that in a second. Rambo waiting for lockdown to end in Victoria. I don't think it's going to in New South Wales. I don't think it's going to at all. They only need one case and they shut the entire state down. Doesn't make sense. Bundaberg. Now, that's a fantastic place, off the beaten track. Mr. Adventure, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir. I've got the walkabout need in me right now. I know some pretty girls in Bundaberg too. Johnny S. Hey, Kaz, got my session date this weekend coming up. Just did my online aptitude, feeling prepared for my U session. Thanks for you. Johnny? Be good, Johnny. Be good, be good. Be good, Johnny. Thanks, Kaz. Good time to train. I saw a great video about a kid that had never been for a run before and ran for 30 days. It's a pretty good video. Steve K, I don't know if they exist anymore, mate. Hey, Senor Wick, what have you done? What have you done, sir? Men and women could not have served better. Australia is the best small army in the world. Absolutely. Not Sue Cow. I've done myself a damage. Mate, I don't know why you did that, but thank you very, very, very much. And again, I'm going to buy maybe some half-cooked chicken with that. So I might look a little bit greener in the next stream. Mr. Wick, Johnny Wick, thank you very much for that, mate. Very much appreciated. Channels don't survive, okay, for long without a little bit of assistance from their friends. So thank you very much, mate, for that turmeric smelling cow. Sabrina, I swear my dad is playing Bigger Johnny right now. Around Darwish could get ugly if the Northern Alliance and Taliban go to war. Look, I think at the moment everything is going to be about ripping the Afghan countryside apart for its rare metals, embracing, the future of the electronic industry. We'll see what happens, mate. We'll see what happens. Salmonella, let's go. It's the spice of life, Sabrina. And for anyone that's looking for tubes, I haven't seen a packet in the wild since I got the first box. However, in Victoria, there is a spate of tubes that have been purchased that came with no spice on them. So I don't know what happened with Smith's crisps, but there's tubes being sold with absolutely none of that delicious MSG that is the main ingredient also of C4. Do you think that we'll be back in Afghanistan? We will never be back in Afghanistan, Steve. Never. Hey, see you later, Daz. Take care all. I've got cows to feed. Say g'day to one and name them for me, please, Daz. Daz has got running water down there in the creek lines that hadn't run for a long time. It was great to see the videos of that. Message was, mate, I heard American 17,000 contractors were also pulled leaving the Afghan army without maintained aircraft, leaving them with very little air superiority. Well, they actually, once they went to Bagram Airfield, and which is those bottom four photos, okay, basically what happened was after they took everything they wanted, they left and it's abandoned again. Again, it gets down to minus 21 in there. You don't want to be in there. I'm in Victoria, so I might have to check that out. Until we get attacked by, those things may be happening. It depends on what occurs on the world stage. Send your tubes. Mr. Adventure, no one can see them, mate. I haven't seen any in the tack since in the wild since I got a box. Guys and gals, okay, we've got Dave Penson here, Smith's Trips. Now, there's the thought. Dave is in Vietnam at the moment. You know, I want to go there, do 2 trips so I can say I've done 2 tours of Nam. Yeah. So what else is happening, team? The stream is running smooth. We've been on here for 54 minutes. What else is happening in your lives? Let's see if Lauren has anything she'd like to say. And I hope that came out articulately and in a way that there is some sort of understanding that the outcome for this should have been goddamn easy and they made it as complicated as possible. And I don't know why. But again, pardon me, I say follow the money and you get the answers. Where are we?
Good afternoon.
Hey, Miss Lauren, how you going?
I'm going good. How are you?
Yeah, good. You're on live.
Yep. No, I figured that. I'd just been in chat. Thank you for explaining all of that.
Did it make sense?
Yes, it was very succinct.
Wait 2 seconds. Phoenix Knight. God bless and guide UKs. Don't let the cancel culture stifle the channel. They won't, mate.
They won't.
Nutsu Cow. We've been here for over 5 years now. Our job is to bring you the news, to assist you in the back play. This is more than a channel. This is a tool that is used by those that may not have either father figures or by those that have someone that understands or accepts what their journey in life is supposed to be. So I'm there to either prop that up through inspiration, desperation, advice and mentoring to give you the best chance of being you. Samuel Mason has become a member.
Oh, welcome.
Is he a stonemason?
No,
He's a Samuel Mason. He works on Samuels. Thank you very much, mate. I will have a coffee after. Thank you, sir. Caffeine.
Yeah, that's great. And I think folks need to remember, we're not a hateful channel. We don't go out to hate people. We're not purposely courting controversy. We are just giving our opinions. And, I mean, yes, there is a lot of people who just give their opinions and the cancel culture comes for them. But I think we try to speak to people logically, even if they don't agree with us. We will have a conversation with them.
It's true. And at the end of the day, if you look at the thumbs down ratio on our videos, it's normally none. Okay? People that come in here, there is no agenda we have here other than to speak about topics that people should be talking about rather than just a football team's score, while they're waiting for the next season to start.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. No, but you explained that very well, especially for someone like me, because I'm not really qualified to comment on it in the same way that you are. I can have an opinion on it, but you really understand the ins and outs of how operations work, how all this happens. What could have been done differently?
Well, our job is to put things in perspective and make things as calm for the civilian and for the children as we possibly can, so that we look professional from the moment we land to the moment we leave. So that every time someone responds, once they're in our apron of protection, it is through forceful communication. You come here, go there, sit down, we will talk to you when we want you to leave. And then when there's calm, that's when we'll come over and rip a badge off and give it to a kid or play with a ball, and show a human side. But you cannot give too much familiarity to civilians or they will take it and that will become contempt. And then they'll start making demands. It's like a marriage with a strong woman.
Yeah, well, this is the thing too, is that we just, when it comes to my knowledge as a civilian, right, if sometimes too much information is confusing to me because I don't understand the big picture. So, there's no point giving me superfluous information. Otherwise, it's just going to confuse me. But you really just seem to be able to break it down.
Well, that's because I don't. It's because I don't know when I learnt it. It was just through 20-something years of having these conversations and being overseas and seeing the emotion in people's faces.
Exactly.
Simon, wait a sec. Simon just asked, did he miss anything? What I'd recommend, Simon, you'd probably have your own points on some of this as well that you could add in. I'd recommend that you go back and watch this entire video. That was narrative, a step-by-step to what went wrong, what could occur, who's now in trouble, and what it means. Because I think you'll really enjoy it, mate.
Yeah. There's a good question from Haroon.
Yeah.
And he said, Kaz, do you reckon there should be an investigation into where the trillions went?
I'll give you an answer to that. There's a thing within the military which is called a Q&A. And that's a question and answer, which is a non-official investigation to see if there needs to be an investigation. So what happens is when you do a Q&A, it is like grabbing a big ball of thread, and when you pull one, all of a sudden what you thought was the problem over here starts to unravel way over there. And guess what? It always goes higher.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you start an investigation, you have to be ready to follow it the entire way.
And that's the problem. The higher it goes, the less likely we are to, in my opinion, ever find out what really happened to it.
Well, what if you did an investigation onto the hierarchy for the last 100 years of warfare for Australia? How many Australians lost their lives because of poor leadership, poor command? I can deal with a soldier whose skills weren't good enough. He wasn't as quick as the other guy who drew first blood. He's a devil's son. Call him Young Guns.
Yep, I understand that too, but someone who's put purposely in danger from someone else's incompetence, who has a duty of care to that person, is a totally different thing.
Who has real information that can make a difference, who doesn't act on it because he's nervous on how he will reflect, and therefore it comes down on those that have to represent with physical bravery instead of moral courage and moral bravery. I expect commanders to be able to speak tactfully, with tact, as aggressively up as what they do down. I've got no respect for an officer that goes in and tries to yell at soldiers, but then is as meek as a homosexual mouse when he speaks up. And sometimes that part of that needs to be, needs to be theatre a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, of course, people respond to that. You know, that's how you get people to listen. You know, I agree, but I think the higher the corruption is, history would tell us that the less likely we are to ever get a proper answer.
Yep.
You know, so I think, look, we have to at some point realise corruption is real and it is at very, very high levels, and they really will, if they don't want to give us an answer, they just won't.
Yeah, we're realising where we are in the mix. We're a very class-driven system in Australia, and we're starting to realise that. Mr. Wick has got to get going. Thank you for the thumbs. Be careful of Ivan Milat in case he comes back and takes you up on that trip, mate. Thank you for this. Thank you for the donation of the sesterces. And a Brussels sprouts coming your way soon, team.
Yeah, you can put it in a smoothie. It'll be yum.
It is true.
It'll be yummier like that.
I'm joking. That's disgusting.
We would accept a Brussels sprout smoothie.
I'd rather have second-hand cigarette smoke from a Turkish rug salesman in my mouth than that.
All right, well, if you can find one of them, we'll let you off the Brussels sprout.
Yeah. Team, is there anything else that you wanted? It's 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon and we're locked down. It's not like there's really anywhere else to be. Papa don't preach. Papa palps. Kaz, mate, how are we going? We're good, mate. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we're good. I'm still a bit crook, but I'm getting better.
She's got the black lung.
No, I'm just full of snot.
Oh, ugh. So's the cabin boy.
Hey, come on now.
Yeah, Stevie Webb, Brussels sprouts are delicious. Everyone that says Brussels sprouts are delicious only says it after they've covered it in butter, pepper, garlic, and everything to actually disguise that small man's cabbage.
I can eat them naked, where they've got nothing on them. I can eat them like that. I like them like that.
She like it like that.
I do.
Papa Palps, is there anything I should know for the medical assessment? Got the virtual on Tuesday. I don't know how they're going to feel your balls on a what do you call it? On a virtual Tuesday. I'm not trying to assume your gender there either. When you're on a medical assessment, mate, there'll be a physical component and there's going to be a psychological component. What I would say to people, is be very, very careful that when you do a Zoom session that you have actually prepared the background, because they're going to be looking at everything other than just your face to see if there's any giveaways, anything in the background. Tell everyone in your house, get the F out.
Yeah.
Don't hang around. This is a job interview.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to be asking you very sensitive questions.
Treat it as such, yeah.
Yep. And they're going to expect maturity.
Yep.
And from there, they're going to ask questions on your psyche. They're going to ask things on your behaviour, on your mindset. Some of the things may be things that your family doesn't know about you either. They may not even support you as the boy the skater boy, to see the man that you can be later.
Yep, they don't need to know all that. Firefox says hello from the Bunnings break room. Hello, Firefox.
From the what?
Bunnings break room. He must work at Bunnings. He's having a break. Mr. Buccarooni's here. Good afternoon, Mr. Buccarooni.
Wait a sec, Phoenix.
Phoenix.
What are your thoughts on the emergency response firefighters part of combat engineers? Did you work with them? I didn't work with them much, mate. But at the end of the day, I think it'd be an extremely boring job when it's there, because there might not be a fire an entire 6-week, 8-week activity. But that's normally it's like a QRF, a quick reaction force that is designed so that if something happens, that you basically get sent out there in the interim while they're waiting for civilians to come in and assist. But thank you for the 5,000 sesterces, 5,000 viewers worth of sesterces there. Phoenix, he always represents.
Yeah, and there's Samuel Mason being cheeky, telling you to get yourself a Pepsi with another 5,000.
I will say, Sam, it's the only time, not to Cal, where I'll ever have a Pepsi is when I go to Kentucky and buy an overpriced drumstick, which is still thicker than my chicken leg. And the two things that I like from Kentucky, 3 things, is the Zinger Burger, is the nuggets, I didn't realise, are so good.
Yeah, they're good.
Okay, and also, again, the chicken leg.
You know you could get a Mountain Dew or something else, don't you?
Are they still here? I thought they stopped fighting after World War II.
Oh, you're so funny. You're so funny. I've heard you go through a KFC drive-through and I've heard you ask for that Pepsi.
No, they said bottle or can. I said can. Keep it small. Nathan. Hey, Kaz and Lauren. Just wanted to know whether it was the right move for the Afghan president to evacuate the country. Look, this is the way I see it, Nathan. What do you think would have happened to him if they had got hold of him? Everyone can say it's cowardly, but before he did that, his country had already laid their weapons down.
Yeah,
there was no resistance between it.
Yeah, at what point is it just a law of someone not going down with the ship?
Did you see what happened to Saddam? Did you see what happened to...
Yeah, well, they weren't particularly great guys anyway. Look, you got a bit of buffering now.
I know.
Did we do something wrong?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I've got what might be looked on as a full Arabic beard.
Oh, no.
It's dying. Is there any way to mess up the medical assessment? Yes, there is, if you treat it like it's dying.
It's dying.
It's been pretty good for us today, but...
Yeah, but Mr. Buccarooni wants to know if his balls arrived. Only you could say that, Mr. Buccarooni.
No, your balls haven't arrived yet, mate. It didn't come. Is there any way to mess up? This will be our last question because it's starting to die.
Yeah.
And that question goes to, is there any way to mess up the assessment session? Medical, yes. If you confess to things, if you say, yes, I still take illicit drugs. If you are on controlled drugs, you won't get in. Okay, you need to be off those for normally at least a year. If you have back injuries, if you have asthma, you'll be treated like an individual case. If you have problems with depression or mental health, you will not get in either.
Yep, it's not a confession session.
Yeah.
That's what you always say.
Yeah.
Well, before everyone goes, I'll be streaming tomorrow morning. If everyone wants to join me for the next part of Breed Out the Ugly Challenge.
What are you saying?
I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. You were there. You watched.
I've been bred out.
No, we're trying to breed out the ugly.
Mr. Adventure, I can only do solo if I've been running or something. It's one of those drinks that goes to shit if you've been sitting down on the lounge. It doesn't taste good at all. I don't reckon lemon goes well with food. It goes well with labour.
Yeah, because you remember the old solo ads, where you can slam it down fast like your garlic sauce.
Well, it was the first drink that came with the wide mouth that allowed you could slam it down fast, and at least 13% of every solo should go on one of your nipples if you're a man. Remember the ad where the guy would go in the kayak and break his back as he hits the water?
I'll be Mangles kind of looking guy on the ad.
Yeah. Mr. Buckaroo, good old Aussie Post. Yeah, you pay for Express and it doesn't get here at all. I get it, mate. It happens to me too. We have got one of our first footballs. Hey, how about tomorrow night?
What?
We look for a day and we do Ball of the Week. Who it goes out to.
Great idea.
Great idea.
Great idea.
I miss the KFC crushes. Nah, I can't do it, mate. But I do miss the soft drink man that used to get around. You know, but too many of those meddling kids that had skateboards used to steal from the back of the truck. Remember that? The drink man used to get around selling crates of bottles like Pasito.
Yeah, I remember the drink man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to be good. Because it'd suck if my kids would hear like the drink man or the ice cream, the home do you remember in Townsville the home ice cream where you could buy boxes of ice cream?
Real men don't eat ice cream.
Yeah. I would always be hoping my kids wouldn't hear it.
Well, I grew up in an army village in Holsworthy, which meant every single person was in the army. And that was back in the day, in the 70s, where women didn't work pretty much, like a little bit like Afghanistan now. And basically what they'd do is the ice cream truck or equivalent would drive up the street. This is where I first had tubes, actually. But then he'd do a U-E and come back because he knew. He could hear the screaming of kids and parents going, no, you can't. And the kids going, come on, mama. And eventually the women that would put down their vodka and go, okay, here's a couple of bucks, go and get something.
That's when you sent your kids to strange men in vans.
Yep, they weren't all white either. Be careful, team.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got some announcements, and I think it's almost time to start getting news about the van.
Yes, please.
For those that don't know, it's been over 8 months ago that I ordered the van for the channel. Okay? So you know, all donations that are made now, if it's not going towards someone's groceries, if it's not going towards someone's plight, when I see it occurring, it's going to start going towards that van. So you know, okay, that you're actually facilitating something that is for the channel, and then we can branch out and we can be visiting and we can be doing street interviews, all that sort of stuff when all this lifts.
It's going to be so great.
What colour is it? Do you know?
I know, but I won't say in case they don't know. I think it's like the same colour as a certain can of soft drink.
It's the most beautiful van I've ever seen, pretty much.
It is beautiful. It's a beautiful van, indeed.
Yeah. Mr. Buckaroony. For those that don't know, Mr. Buckaroony and Lauren, both YouTubers. Mr. Buckaroony, soldier, Signal Corps. I don't hold that against him. You know, he had mercury on his head for years. You know, that's the hat badge. Okay,
Right.
Was also a cop, also a prison guard, and now pretty much full-time YouTuber.
Yeah.
He just raised nearly $8,000.
Amazing.
Okay, including donations from our channel for things, for kids, sporting equipment, etc. Absolutely amazing. It was quite an emotional stream to watch. I was really happy to be there for you.
Yeah, no, he's really great. He's still serving Australia.
He always is.
I don't think he's ever going to stop.
He's never going to stop.
Nope. I don't think he is.
Yeah. Well, Tim, let's get out of here. Let you have your weekends back because you're so gracious. You stayed to the end. Mr. P had no excuse to go to bed. I had a 40-minute afternoon sleep. It was fantastic. And I'm looking at putting the running shoes back on soon. It's been nearly 6 years.
Yep. Stephen Webb just said this weekend has been the YouTube A-list because you've been streaming, Mr. Buckaroony streamed, and even I streamed this weekend. So we all streamed this weekend. We kept you all amused.
Guys and gals, we're only ever a phone call away. All you need to do is, I need you tonight.
Yeah, don't ring me.
And I will get back on.
Ring Kaz.
Yeah.
I'll just put that link in the chat right now for people to go look at what Afghanistan was like in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, do that. I tell you, team, Afghanistan, you will not know the difference between it and Sydney in the 1970s, except the fact I'm not in the screen.
Yeah, it was exactly. Do you know, I've heard about that van, David Penson. I've heard about that van. That was a legendary van, and it wasn't just Holsworthy, I think.
Fly Fox, back to mob of customers at Penrith Bunnings. Okay, the Bunnings now have got like the most annoying mother-in-law continually screaming over the intercom, "This is not about social, this is about getting what you need, now go." And you go to Bunnings for peace.
Yeah.
You know, you've got like a 10-foot wide aisles and about 40 of them, and they're still screaming at you when you're the only person in Bunnings. Social distance, unless you're on a plane, that's allowed.
You know,
Not one child has actually passed away from COVID, yet no schools are happening.
Yeah. No one's allowed in. Oh, unless you're Nicole Kidman and that, you're allowed in. That doesn't apply to you. Don't worry about it.
You know, COVID makes about as much sense as the Afghan withdrawal.
Well,
you know.
Well, the way they do it, you're getting outside of the flags.
I am.
Now this is going to go bad.
Because I know that I've got to be a teacher as of tomorrow morning and be homeschooling again.
Yep.
If I was to teach her about weapons, there'd be no arguments. Like this, do that. But as soon as it's about teaching people academics quicker than what they're able to take it on from a bad teacher, which is me, drives me insane.
They should be giving you resources for it.
Sure. Yeah.
Really, the teachers should just still be doing it. Why aren't they?
Well, they're told they're not allowed to.
What? They can't even do it from Zoom?
Well, they could, but they're not.
Are they still paid?
Yeah.
Well, that's a load of rubbish.
They're still heroes.
Because, no, come on now. Because here's the thing, right? Your little girl, she's got great parents. There are some little kids out there where school was their only escape from a shitty household.
Yeah.
So now what's happening with them? What sort of dip are we going to see in our own education levels in the next few years?
I prefer truth over facts.
Yeah.
All right, with that, team, let's get out of here. Go and enjoy your Sunday. Survivor's on tonight. SAS Australia is about to begin. We'll be covering that. You didn't want us to cover Survivor, but SAS Australia, phobias and other such topics are coming up, and I'll be doing some other small videos, that are productions.
Yeah, they're pretty well-viewed videos if people look through your back catalogue. The SAS ones are.
Yeah, but you almost can't find them, like anything.
Yeah.
When you're a shadow banned channel, you realise it because your views go whack and they just stop like a closed door.
Well, thank you very much for the stream. Thank you to all the moderators. Thank you to all the members. Thank you to all the old regulars and the new regulars. And hello out there to all the lurkers who have not yet made themselves known.
And thank you to anyone that wore a uniform,
Yes, indeed.
and represented their signature,
Yep.
to go over to there to be part of the coalition of the willing.
Yep.
And you didn't waste your time. And there's faces that are coming home right now as testament to that, and you're going to give them back their 1970s Afghanistan, but in a new postcode in Australia. And to those children and to those people, you're welcome.
Yeah, you are welcome. Welcome home.
Yeah, now get over the fence and get the ball if you hit it over there.
Yeah, exactly.
See you later. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.